In this video, we're going to go over how to add a Schedule C to your tax return. So anytime you need to add a form, just go ahead and scroll up to the top of the page and click Add Form, and that button is going to allow you to add any type of form that you may need. In this case, we need to have a form for the Schedule C, which explains the profit or loss for a business. So you just double click that and it's going to lead you to this form. And the first thing you're going to have to do is identify what type of business is this business for the taxpayer. So say for instance, we have a taxpayer that cuts hair, is it hair beautician where they, do sew-ins, do braiding. What you would do is type in the relevancy of the industry for the Schedule C here. So in this case, they're hair beauticians. And the most important thing you have to do next is identify the specific business code for that industry. Every industry has a different business code, and the more often you perform Schedule C's for clients, the more familiar you'll become with the business code off the top of your head. But luckily, you can just click this menu right here for choices and just hit personal services, and it's going to take you down and give you this list right here for beauticians, hair care, and things like that. So in this case, our client is a hair beautician, so we're just going to hit beauty salons. And if they don't have a business name, you don't have to just make one up. It's very plausible that they may not have a business. They may just be known as the hair lady or hair guy or the barber. So it's not out of the ordinary that they wouldn't have a business name. Employer ID, if they don't have employer ID, you can just put in their social security number. Business address is also something I wanted to go over because you don't have, say for instance, they do hair out of their house. You wouldn't have to enter their address all over again. You can just check this box and it says check box to transfer CDS address to Schedule C business address. And what CDS stands for is client data sheet. So you just hit X and it's going to import the address that we entered into the client data sheet because this is obviously the same taxpayer. Next is going to ask you for the accounting method on how they handled the cash money transactions of their business. Was it by cash? Was it by accrual? Or was it by some other method? You would just label that here and then go on to the next questions. Like, did they materially participate in the business this year? Did they start the business this year? Did they make any payments in 2022 that would require them to file a Form 1099? That would insinuate that they had employees that they had to pay. And once they paid them at the end of the year, they gave them a 1099. And the last question is going to ask, did you file that 1099? And hopefully they did if they have employees. Next thing we're going to do is cover the part one, which is the income part. To keep it short and simple, let's just say they made $15,500 from doing hair that year. You would just put that information in right here, and it'll auto-populate. Let's also say that every single business is going to have an expense. So we need to identify how to identify those expenses because there's a couple different subjects and a couple different boxes that you can fill in values for the relevant expenses. So like if I cut hair, I'm going to need clippers, I'm going to need guards, I'm going to need paper towels, I'm going to need the disinfectant for the clippers themselves. Like there's a lot of expenses that go into every single business. It doesn't even matter if you are selling paper on the corner. You probably have a cell phone that you can summarize as an expense. So make sure you're probing for expenses and make sure that every single Schedule C that you fill out has income and an expense, because there's no such thing as a business without expenses. And if you find a business without an expense, let me know. So I'm going to enter all the expenses here. Let's just say I have $8,000 in supplies. I have really good clippers. Advertising, I'm going on Facebook and Google to try to get a better clientele. And let's also say that I had to pay utilities because I'm renting a booth out. And let's say those utilities added up to $2,400. Cool. Once you have all these expenses, the next part is going to ask you for is a cost of goods sold. In this case, since we're cutting hair, we don't have to buy product in order to create another product that we're trying to sell. So we're going to skip this cost of goods sold because that's not relevant in this case. But if they did have cost of goods sold, you would enter those expenses here. Part 4 is going to elaborate on information for your vehicle. And this is where you're going to basically going to cover car depreciation or depreciation of your vehicle. And this is how you monitor that by miles driven, how often you had to commute, other uses for the vehicle. All that relevant information regarding the depreciation of your vehicle is going to be in part 4 here. And lastly, part 5 is where you are able to input business expenses that are not included on lines 8 through 26. So let's say you have like a one-time off expense, like you got a fine for something, you would just enter that right here, put in the description, put in the amount, and everything will be good to go. And that's essentially it. Once you're done, go ahead and click save, and you will see what this does to affect the return after you click save. You're going to see the changes here, and that essentially is it.